This is Michael Jackson's birth chart and I'm going to unpick it. I have my own theories about Michael. I feel very drawn to him, like a lot of people, I think. I feel emotional about him. I feel the need to protect him and tell his story through his birth chart in the most truthful way possible. I actually did this yesterday, but I didn't think it was good enough, so I'm doing it again. I'm just going to highlight the main points and some things that stand out to me. So I want to look at his sun in the 7th house on his descendant. Typically that would mean if this was a client, I know that there's a problem with father. Because if the 1st house is the body and the eye presence, if the sun is in the 7th house, then it's away from us. And it indicates a father that could be difficult or not there. Because his Pluto is conjunct his sun, I know that his father made him. So he had a very intense relationship with his father. Could have been a painful relationship with Joseph Jackson. Sun in the 7th house gives basically a predisposition to be in relationships. Someone who's very good with other people. Even though it's not Venus, it's still somebody who works well interacting with others. Let's go to his moon. So his moon is in the 1st house in Pisces conjunct his ascendant. So this tells me that Michael was extremely sensitive. He gave off a mysterious vibe. He was very emotionally porous, and as a child, he would have needed extra nurturing. I've said before that Pisces moons are extremely sensitive, and as I say, they're very, very porous, emotionally porous, and absorb vibes around them more than any moon sign. Because his ascendant is Pisces and his moon is there, this means that every experience for Michael was somewhat of an emotional one, and he couldn't hide his feelings easily. I have moon in the 1st house in Scorpio on my ascendant, which is water. And yeah, I don't hide my feelings easily. It's like wearing heart on your sleeve kind of vibe. Michael had a much better relationship with his mother than his father, and this is going by his chart, and I know that's quite common knowledge, but it is indicated in his chart. So let's look at Mercury. Mercury is in the 6th house in Leo. So Michael would have been very good at acting and putting on different personas, using his voice to do different sounds, and probably spoke very dramatically, could be dramatic, could speak dramatically. In the 6th house, it does suggest that his thinking was kind of level-headed and grounded. Michael Jackson was a perfectionist. Because of that stellium in the 6th and his sun in Virgo, he was someone who, the reason he was as successful as he was is because he's got 6th house stellium and his sun is in Virgo. That is a very hard-working cluster of energy. He was actually a real grafter. He has Venus in Leo, so he loved other famous women. He loved women who were like a trophy. He loved women who were glamorous and perhaps had their own sense of social status. Someone who would make him look good on his arm. That is Venus in Leo. And yes, that is somewhat of a superficial reason to be with someone, but really it's not if you have Venus in Leo. Venus in the 6th house, once he'd commit to someone, he would commit to them. Because Earth is very grounded, and it's also very, very picky. Uranus in the 6th house would have made him an unconventional, somewhat out of control employee. If you have any employees or employ people with Uranus in the 6th house, or if you have it yourself, you will have unruly employers, or be one yourself. Because Uranus in the 6th house usually indicates someone who should be self-employed. So the ruler of his ascendant, Neptune and Jupiter. Neptune is in the 9th house. Now this is interesting because Neptune in the 9th house could indicate he attracted gurus or spiritual teachers that were deceptive, or people that didn't really have his best interests at heart. It would have given him a proclivity, however, to be very interested in occult with Jupiter in the 8th house. He would have been very interested in the mystical side of things. Perhaps he liked astrology, an interest in religion. And that's where his vital energy was being expressed, because that's the ruler of his ascendant. So overall, at the moment, we see a person who is extremely sensitive, perfectionist, somebody who knew what he wanted and how to get it. He's got Venus square Mars, which probably made him quite have a bit of sex appeal. It gives me like a sizzling vibe. So let's look at his midheaven in Sagittarius with Saturn on his midheaven. So he, again, this is someone who was extremely hard working. This gives patience, persistence, and authority in his career. I actually like Saturn on the midheaven. It does square his moon though, so that probably made him feel like he had some kind of emotional duty to be very successful, and probably struggled with the need of being successful and wanting comforts and to be comforted because he was that sensitive. This chart does not give me the vibe of someone who actually liked being out in the spotlight. This chart is giving me vibes of someone who is extremely methodical and creative. Let's look at his Chiron. So Chiron is in the 12th house in Aquarius. You see where it says number 11, Chiron in Aquarius in the 12th house. So if this were a client, and this, I didn't know this was Michael Jackson's birth chart. This is someone who feels like a complete outsider and could suffer with mental health issues because of that. Because he's Pisces rising and he's got Chiron in the 12th house, this is someone who has deep and huge amounts of compassion for other people. Chiron in the 12th house is often seen in those who work in the mental health fields. He may have had sleep disturbances. He's got vertex in the 7th house, so fated encounters came through others in a business context. So let's say he goes to dinner with somebody and there's an attractive friend there or someone who could help him in his career. That would be a past life fated contract for him. Because it's near his sun, it is linked to the masculine. It's linked to his masculine principle, aka the father. The reason why he was such a hard worker is because he has mostly helpful sextiles to his 6th house from Jupiter. Venus trine midheaven is very good for career. You could become very wealthy when you have positive aspects from either Jupiter to Venus or Venus to the midheaven. The ruler of his midheaven, which is Jupiter, is in the 8th house in Libra. So he's very good at diplomacy and working probably as being sort of like a mediator, maybe showing up to an event and sort of diffusing situations or events that needed to be balanced. And also because his North Node is in the 8th house there, that was his destiny. His destiny was radical self-power. So I don't know if you know about this book. This is Jan Spiller Astrology for the Soul. This is the book I reference when I'm looking at someone's North Node. And you need this book. So Libra, North Node, 8th house. He needed to be open to partnering and compromising, because the South Node in Aries is someone who's hyper independent. So he probably spent a lot of his time alone. He could have been a bit of a hoarder because the 2nd house, South Node, like Taurus, unuseful possessions. 2nd house, South Node or Taurus South Node is someone who can be stubborn and collect possessions for future scarcity that makes them feel like they've got something to grab onto, but usually they need to let go of those things. So that is just a small bit of analysis of Michael Jackson's birth chart. If you can see anything, put it in the comments.